And we have our next guest that I'm about to bring on, and I'm not going to mess up his intro, although this man needs no intro. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Manu back on the channel, the 9-9 Newsstands.
I love the names, man. I love the banana bend gate or bend gate, right? And the whole day I've been telling people CGC's on a bender. Like, that's been my little thing on it. Like, I think it's funny. There have been YouTube videos about it. The forum has been growing, and I've been aware of it as well. And like, likewise, I didn't feel compelled to say anything about it. Not that I didn't think it was a big problem. I have spoken about it here and there. You know, I've joined Comic Doc on several streams. You and I have been with Comic Doc together. He does his unboxings of all of his client books, hundreds of them a week. And he's been noticing this for several months. He's been vocal about it. So when I'm with him on a stream, we discuss it. That is, you know, talking about it. But I haven't taken upon myself to make any content about it. And then a couple of nights ago, there was something that happened. I think someone sent me a picture of a book, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'll just make a story post. So I put up a story post, and it was very simple. It said, unfortunately, it's a thing. And I just kind of talked about, like, if you want your book to lay flat or not be bent, then maybe don't send it to CGC at the moment. But the way I said it, without so much detail, I thought I was speaking to a community that had already absorbed so much of what's floating around. There's larger accounts making videos, smaller accounts making videos, Instagram posts, the forum. So I figured in a roundabout way, maybe a lot of people were aware of it. I guess I was out of touch in that sense, because the response to my story was it did phenomenally well, meaning it was interesting to people. Like a bunch of people put their thumb on it and read it, right? And Instagram got that signal and kept sending it to people. And people screenshotted it and put it on their story. But I got so many responses of people saying, dude, you got to tell us more. What are you talking about? And so after that, I was like, well, I guess it's time for this thing to, you know, get some real traction behind it. I didn't know that it didn't have it. And I had nothing to do with Palm Beach Presser's post, of course. It just so happened the morning after my story. I don't think it had anything to do with my story. I think this is the natural course of this thing becoming more and more interesting to people and more of a concern. The next morning, you see Palm Beach Presser's post. Like, bro, he wrote a letter to his clients telling them don't submit books at his own expense. Like, that's what they're pressing books with him for. And I thought that was heartfelt. I thought that was compelling. And I was like, oh, that's significant. So I put that onto my story, and MJ and I had already planned on doing a stream, and our stream was going to be about the updates on PSA. You know, I had a conversation with Elizabeth. She told me a couple of things that I wanted to communicate to the audience. We had that stream planned, and just one thing led to another. And we're like, let's get Palm Beach Presser on. And, you know, we'll definitely talk about PSA, but in a sense, CGC shooting themselves in the foot is talking about PSA. Here's the opportunity getting even richer for PSA to take advantage of, right? The timing couldn't be better. And then, of course, your video, you reached out to CGC. What do you think about that response? I think you and MK already spoke about it, but like, why do you think they went so like, where do you think their head's at? Because they're obviously aware of it. So what do you think there?
Well, I think it is the response that they should have, right? Where it's like it's got to be like, hey, we're aware, we're looking into it, we're taking care of it.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch. So it was kind of the response that I was expecting, but I think the good thing about it is that it seems like company-wide they understand it's an issue, as opposed to like maybe for the last or a few months back, maybe they were sort of just solving people's single cases, you know, and it was like, all right, we'll take care of your books, or hey, we'll reslab it, you know, as opposed to like, hey, this is now a priority here, you know, in the company, what's going on, and sort of like a bigger investigation. So I think that's maybe the good part about it.
You're right in the sense that what else are they going to respond with? They cannot, you know, really ruin their reputation, admittedly, right? Like, so they have to respond in this way. And I always take everything personal because, you know, an idealist from a collector's perspective, but it's that part where they said, we're trying to replicate the issue. Well, I mean, you're replicating it in every submission. It shouldn't be that hard to replicate. But, you know, they're not going to say that, of course. And then it said, while we have not seen any impact to the condition of the books, right? And of course, it's right for them to say that because they can't say we are ruining books.
Yeah, that's a corporate speak. That's a Floyd. Yeah, like no accountability. They got to dodge that. So I think that that's intentional language.
I understand. I 100% agree. And I think we as a community at a point, we're like, we really don't care what those responses are. In fact, like 8, 9 months ago, I mean, not, it is 8, 9 months ago now, when the scandal thing was first happening, you and I had a conversation about what do you think Matt would say about this? And my response at that point was a bit of an aggressive one, but it was like, no one cares what Matt has to say about this. And Matt being a representative of CGC, it's like, we don't care what they have to say about it, because they're going to give us what we expect them to give us, right? Like, we need to know what's happening, or at least, like, do something that serves us better than waiting for that sort of PC response. But
yeah,
in any case, enough about that. I think the community traction is there. Your video is absolutely doing its thing about spreading the awareness. So that's awesome. In terms of how many books are being affected, I haven't been submitting at all, so I have no idea what the percentage is, but I do know it's alarming the rate of my friends that are like, bro, I got a book that's like that. Dude, my submission was 6 books. 2 of them are like that. So it seems too high to be anything good.
Yeah. I mean, which is why it felt like, okay, this feels very appropriate to talk about now, as opposed to like maybe a few months ago where it wasn't as much in the zeitgeist, so to speak.
Right.
But I did. Let me ask you this. This is a little content question.
JSS, what up?
I want to float it to you. Shout out to Derek. Derek is always holding it down. But he says, do you think Manu's IG feed shows up in Matt Nelson's nightmares? Now, not necessarily in response to this question, but I did want to ask you how you feel about this, because it goes back to me having to do my hedge of like in the video of like getting ahead of the forums, calling me out and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like with the content thing, because like now, your Instagram account, it's like people look at it,
I'm very grateful for that. Yeah.
And if you say something, it can very much become a story. What's been kind of your experience with your Instagram and trying to figure out like what's appropriate to talk about versus what's not, what's too early versus like you want to be on top of a current affair but responsibly.
Yeah.
And even we've had a little bit of offline conversations that I don't want to share specifically about this, but like,
sure.
People are watching, and I've definitely had people hit me up who were watching that we've had conversations about, so what's your thought? What's your thought on this, that the responsibility, I suppose, right now?
I take it very seriously, and it's not an active thought, because I think I had prepared myself. I wanted to always say something meaningful, and I never wanted to say something frivolously. Like, just even before there was as many people viewing my page, even for myself, I just go with my gut. And I don't know if there's a rule book or a guideline for it, but if something doesn't feel significant to me, then I just don't talk about it. I'm just like, they'll sort it out on their own, whatever that might be. And if I feel something, if I see something or hear something or experience something, and I think, well, this is significant to the collecting community that I'm a part of and that I care about. Like, this is something that I would want to know about. This is something that I would want someone to address. This is something that I would want corrected. That's the meter that I use. It's quite simply just that. And I think, and so, if I feel like, people need to know about this, then I will say something about it. And sometimes if something is too early, I might just hint at it, right? And it's kind of gauging, are people getting the subliminal, the subtle sort of thing that I'm saying? Is there already awareness for it? And it's like that story I put up the other day. I'm very grateful that people are actually in my stories. Like, that's a pretty deep engagement place, right? Like, that's like, you're really there with me, and I appreciate that. And I put the story, and the response to the stories was what let me know that, we should be making more content about this. People are concerned, but now it's clear that a large percentage of people are unaware. But anyway, so I want to make sure that I don't say anything that is silly. I want to make sure that I'm not farming drama for the sake of. I don't like that sort of thing. I want to cultivate an environment of positivity if it's my own, efforts, if I can do so. But if we have to discuss something that's negative, discussing something negative to me is not negative. That's because we want to get rid of it and get to the place where that is not affecting us negatively. So it's for a positive reason. And then I think I have a decent moral compass, right? Like, I don't want to throw people under the bus. There are people that do silly things that I encounter all the time. And it's not like I'm just out here trying to name names or, so on and so forth. And there are certain things that I don't think are reasonable to make a huge fuss about, even though they are important. Like if there's an account that is scamming people out of their books, I would have to make that post 10 times a week. Oh, here's another page that's a scammer. I decide to go with the overall messaging of you guys should be careful. You know, like don't trust something that sounds too good to be true. And I want to drill home that messaging so you don't have to keep talking about each individual occurrence, right? Like I will talk about what shill bidding looks like. Now look for it, you know, because it happens every day, dozens of times on all the listings that we're watching on eBay. Just be aware of it. So I've also been very cognizant of making sure that I'm adding significant value so people don't go to my story or go to my post and see something meaningless. Because how many times is someone willing to see something meaningless before the algorithm realizes they're not paying any attention and it doesn't show up for them anymore?
Yeah.
So if I can keep good on my promise of serving the community with what I would want to be served with, then I really hope that I stay on this path of, you know, being taken somewhat seriously, because I think these topics are worth paying attention to, and keeping people engaged, right? It's really meaningful to me. It's really special to me. And, but I think that's a roundabout way of saying, like, I use my gut. I think I have a decent moral compass, and I'm not looking to throw people under the bus for the sake of, and, you know, and it's just topics that I think are really important to keep the community growing in the right direction. Dude, there's a lot of money here. People aren't always super wise about what they're buying. You know, they're listening to influencers, they're listening to just different things in the world, and they don't have all of the pieces to that puzzle, right? But they're making a decision. And I just want to be a voice that can remind someone of some of the concerns, but for the right reasons, right? Like, here's why you need to be careful, or here's why Whatnot could be bad. You know, even though I have great friends on Whatnot, I like to talk about the more important thing, the psychology of things, right? Like the gambling element in modern Marvel cards, right? How people are buying cases and cases at a time so they can pull a low numbered card. Some people can afford to do that, but remember, it's not so important for you to always be involved if it's going to cost you you can't pay the rent. So those sort of ideas, the psychology behind collecting, I like to stick with that rather than the finer points of it. And I think it's done well for my page, and I think I'd like to continue to do that. I appreciate that question, Swag. That was dope of you.
No, I think it's very true. I mean, I would say that I'd like to think that that's what I also try to do. I don't always get it
very
right.
well.
No. But, you know, it reminds me of the quote, and forgive me, I can't remember who said it, and I'll probably butcher it, but, you know, it's the small minds talk people, medium minds talk events, and big minds talk ideas. And I think that's the approach that I think is good and interesting, and adds a lot of value to take that, because like getting in the weeds with individuals isn't all that helpful, as opposed to like, what is the larger idea that someone should take away or think about. And so,
agreed.
You know, especially in the world we are in today, there's a lot of flinging going on, a lot of mudslinging. So it's good to get some refreshing takes on some bigger ideas. But yeah, it's always a balance. It's always interesting, you know, how to navigate. What are you going to talk about that week? You know,
it is, man.
Sort of get attention.
Just like yourself, you know, people send you things and you have to make a decision. Like, is this, you know, you also got to think about, it might even be important to you, but is it going to be important to a majority of your audience, right? We're also protecting the time that our audience is spending. We don't want to waste their time.
Yeah.
So we're cognizant of that as well. Sometimes, I mean, not even sometimes, a lot of times I find myself one-on-one in a conversation. An individual sends me something that's of concern with them. They may lead with, yo, can you please post about this? Can you make a post about this? And I'm like, no, but I can help you, right? Let's talk about it. Show me the book. Tell me what the concern is. Maybe I can help you. Some things I will still, a lot of times, still spend my time addressing, but not on a public platform, because I know majority of my audience is not affected by that. And it's going to be a waste of their time. And I'm not trying to do that.
No, it 100%. It's like, it's the value you're going to serve to people, as opposed to, you know, whatever is instead of making content that is basically just for you, you know, and value to the people can be a lot of different things, But as long as, you're coming at it from that standpoint, I think you're always going to be successful and do well with it for sure.